Today I'm going to walk you through some tips and tricks on how to fly with your mountain bike. Sorry, I didn't mean that kind of flying. I meant traveling with your mountain bike on a plane. There are three main methods people use when traveling with a bike. Sometimes you'll see people use a hard shell case, which is often used with road bikes or something a little smaller or fragile. And for mountain bikes, you'll often see a nice travel bag like this Evoc one behind me, or you'll see a cardboard bike box like the one over there. Both methods of mountain bike travel definitely have their pros and cons. A soft shell bag is much more expensive at around $500. It's also about 5 pounds heavier than a bike box, which can come into play if you're right on the edge of certain airline baggage fees. But it does make the task of packing your bike a lot quicker and more consistent. And while you're at the airport, it has wheels, which make navigating the airport a lot easier. You can kind of roll it around everywhere. A cardboard bike box, on the other hand, is much cheaper, and it should be free if you have a cool shop in town. And you don't have to store it the rest of the year when you're done with it, because you can just break it down, recycle it, and then get another one when you need to go on another trip. The cons of a cardboard box are mainly that it can be more of a hassle to transport through the airport as you're dragging it everywhere instead of rolling it. It can get tossed around a bit more if you're not marking it properly, and it can offer a little bit less protection for your baby depending on how you pack it. I wanted to share some of my favorite tips and tricks for getting this done properly for anyone who hasn't flown with the bike yet and is maybe nervous about it. And we'll see at the end of the video if the bike survived the trip, so we'll see how this goes. Let's jump into it.
The first step when it comes to flying with a bike is to decide which airlines are available to you and look at what fees they charge. Many common US-based companies like Alaska, Delta, United, American, or Virgin have changed their policy in the last few years and have removed the excess bicycle sporting equipment fee in favor of a little bit more simplistic policy. On these airlines, if the bag or box is under 50 pounds, it will be charged as if it were a normal checked luggage bag. And if it weighs over 50 pounds, it will be charged an overweight or oversized luggage fee. This fee usually adds between $100 to $200 on both your departing and return trips. While my personal mountain bike is 30 pounds and the Evoc bike bag is 18.8 pounds, this gets me dangerously close to the 50-pound weight limit, and that's before accounting for tools, shoes, or a helmet in the bag. The bike box, on the other hand, is 13 pounds, which gives me around an extra 6 pounds of wiggle room before becoming overweight. Sometimes selecting the right airline can end up saving you hundreds of dollars over the length of your trip, so beware of just taking the cheapest flight before having a look at their luggage rules. Now that your trip is booked, let's go find a bike box. Generally, I like to call around to local shops and ask for a size large mountain bike box. 99% of the time, a shop will happily divert a bike box that was destined to be thrown out or recycled. This is generally free, but on rare occasion you will find shops that attempt to charge $40 to $75 for a box. It really pays to call around and get a feel for your options before going and grabbing one. I like to give myself at least 3 to 5 days of leeway, just in case the cool shop in town doesn't have any on hand at the moment, but they plan on a new batch of bikes or boxes arriving in a few days. Also, don't forget to ask for packing materials if possible too. A 6-pack of spicy waters or some beer is usually an appreciated trade. The dimensions I prefer the best for traveling with a mountain bike is a box that is at least 31 inches tall, 60 inches long, and 9 to 10 inches wide. This will fit a size medium or large 29-inch full suspension bike no problem. Once you have the box at home, I like to reinforce the bottom with some tape and remove any of the barcodes or labels that are present. This just helps prevent the bike from getting scanned into the airline system incorrectly and potentially ending up on the other side of the world when you are heading to a race in France. Once the box is prepped, we can get the bike ready. To pack your bike, you'll need some basic tools and maintenance skills. You can always have a bike shop do this part for you as well if you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself. I also personally have 2 sections of 1/2-inch PVC pipe cut down to 115 millimeters in length and 148 millimeters in length that I like to use as fake hubs to prevent the fork or rear end from getting crushed sideways. The disassembly process will be pretty much the same for both the bike bag and box, but let's start out with the box first. Essentially what we need to do is make the bike as small as possible, both lengthwise and heightwise, by lowering your seat and letting most of the air out of your tires and suspension. It's also a really good idea to take note of your suspension settings if you haven't done so already. Then, to make the bike narrower, we will remove the pedals and set those aside. And personally, I do think it's a good idea to unthread the derailleur from the derailleur hanger. And if you do have a quick link chain, it's pretty easy to remove that and prevent any scratches as well. To make the bike even more compact, next we will take the front wheel off. But make sure to add a fork spacer and a brake pad spacer or some thick cardboard to make sure nothing gets squished. Now you're almost ready to pack the bike up. We just need to remove the disc rotor from the front wheel, and then we'll tackle the handlebars after adding some protection. When it comes to protecting the bike, you're basically worried about 3 things: the front wheel and hub damaging the frame's top tube or down tube, the bike rubbing against the sides of the cardboard box during transit, and how you're going to protect the brake levers and shifters from damaging the fork and frame once it's all packed away. I really like to cover as much of the frame and fork as possible with foam and cardboard packaging. You can also use rags, t-shirts, or towels to keep things like your brake levers and derailleurs or stems safe. Once the bike is relatively well protected, we can go ahead and remove the bars from the stem and start trying to pack the bike into the box. One thing I like to do at this point is to create a small box with all of our goodies like our chain, rotor, pedals, and any other small tools or supplies you might need. The best way I have found to get the bike safely into the box is to slowly drop the bike down while making sure the handlebar ends up left-hand side down in the box. This seems to give me enough cable slack to safely get everything settled in. And after the handlebar is situated, I will protect the ends of the front hub and slide the wheel next to the drive side of the bike. At this point, it really helps to have the drive side crank arm back towards the rear wheel. This just gives you the most room next to your frame. Once the wheel and handlebar are all situated, you can throw in your small box of extras and add some packing materials to make sure the bike doesn't shift around. We want to try to prevent it from going too much vertically or side to side. This one looks pretty good to me. I'll spare you some time packing April's bike into the bike bag because it's basically the same process, aside from needing to take off the rear wheel and adding a dummy spacer and a brake pad spacer into the rear end of the bike as well. These bike bags do claim that you can leave the disc rotors on the wheels when flying with them, but in my experience, it's about 50-50 whether it makes it to your destination without getting some sort of bend or wobble in it. We are going to leave the rear rotor on as a test, but I will make sure to pack a spare one for sure. The process of getting the bike into the bag is relatively straightforward. You basically put the top tube protector on the bike, secure the fork and rear triangle, and then slide in your wheels into each wheel compartment. I timed myself on the bike bag versus the cardboard box, and the bike bag was roughly 15 minutes start to finish, and the box was closer to 20 minutes. After we got the bikes packed away, it was time to give them a test run on the scale at home. The Evoc bag was coming in quite a bit overweight, so we had to pull the tools out and put them in a separate bag. The bike box, however, came in right under 50 pounds and was ready to go. Once we knew we were good to go on the weight, it was time to head to the airport. At the airport, I always try to find a spare one of these rolling carts laying around if possible. It makes the whole bike box process a ton easier. Sometimes they're free, but many airports will charge around $6 to $10 for them. When paying, we were able to head up to the help desk, get checked in, weigh the bikes, and pay our $35 each. Then they asked us to head over to the oversized baggage drop-off, where we got to meet a really nice TSA agent who let us ask him some questions.
What are you looking for when you open it up? Mostly CO2 cartridges and stuff? Or?
That, prohibited items, against WD-40, tri-flow, things that can't go, that could start a fire on a plane.
Cool.
And then, of course, commercial grade explosives primarily is what the machine's scanning for. What the exact word was.
The TSA agent that we had helping us was super nice and he took really great care of us. I did want to note though that not all people will take the extra time to repack your bike exactly how you had it, so try to minimize any free-floating packing materials you might have and keep any extras towards the top of the box versus having them buried at the bottom. After a long day of travel, we were reunited with the bikes in Bentonville. The box and bag both looked good, but we wouldn't know how the bikes fared until building them up the next day. The build process was pretty straightforward and both bikes made it in perfect shape. We had a great time at the festival hanging out and riding with a ton of nice people. We were even able to check off a few features that we had been eyeing up for a while. It felt so good to be on our own bikes the whole time, and it was definitely worth the hassle. I will admit though, for the return trip, I didn't take as many precautions when packing them away. I left both the chains on and both of April's rotors on. I kinda just crossed my fingers and hoped they would make it back okay.
Well, we made it back to the shop and luckily both bikes survived the journey. I really hope this video is helpful for anyone who is curious on how we travel to various events with our bikes. I know it can be scary to pack away your prized possession and send it out into the ether, but if you make sure to pack it away safely, remove any and all barcodes you don't need, and plan on at least 2 hours between each layover, you have a really good shot of things going smoothly for you. Also, there are some really cool ways to stash an AirTag tracker on your bike, like this little cap, and I'll do a separate video on our second channel covering how to do that. As far as my preference for bike bag versus box, honestly, a bag is a better experience hands down, and if I was traveling 3 to 4 times a year, it would definitely be worth the investment. However, if you plan on doing a once-in-a-lifetime bike trip with your friends, then I personally would go with the cardboard box route, as it's lighter, cheaper, and it's not that big of a hassle overall. However, there always is the option of calling around to shops and seeing if they might rent you a bag for one trip. That's a good way to go about it too if you have a bike you really want to take care of, but you don't have the extra budget to spring for a bike bag at the moment. As always, thank you all so much for watching. We really appreciate you, and if you found some value in this video and you could click like or subscribe, that really helps our channel. Until then, we hope you have fun riding, and we'll see you next time.